Good morning and welcome to another episode of Butterfly Kisses, a journey of spiritual transformation. I am your host, Amy Gray-Cunningham, and Happy New Year. Can you believe it is 2023? I am just beyond amazed and shocked. Not shocked, but I still can't believe it is 2023. But I am very excited to see what this year has in store for me and for you and for the entire world. I think, every new year, it's like kind of a fresh start almost, where a clean slate, where we have the opportunity to be different, be new, be our fresh selves. And then I got thinking about it this morning. I'm like, well, why can't we do that in July and October? Why do we always have to wait until the new year? But there's something about the new year that offers new possibilities and new opportunities. And it's kind of like a do-over or just a way to start something new. So, but I guess it's all about perspective and how you want to look at the world. But I'm very excited about 2023 and what it has in store for us and for this podcast as well. I have some amazing guests coming up this year, and you're really going to enjoy it, I think, and take something from it. But the last month or so, since December, I took a few weeks off from podcasting and, well, just about everything, just because I needed time to go inward and time to figure out what it was I wanted from this life and what I wanted to experience. And what I found out, it's pretty simple, is life is all about the experience of living life. So we get to make choices every day, and we get to create what it is we want to create and experience what we want to experience. But it's all about living the experience. So it may be an interesting concept for some, or maybe not for anybody, and it may not resonate with anybody. But for me, it was a kind of an awakening. So I hope that everyone has the opportunity to really take time, go within, and really figure out what it is you want from your life. But enough with the philosophical, emotional stuff that I've been going through. I want to introduce you to today's guest. You're just going to love her. Her name is Lauren Fonvielle, and she has a special way of helping people go within to find out who we are and to release that which keeps us bound or held back. She uses a technique. It's one that we have talked about before, but she talks about it in a way that's very interesting and eye-opening and helps me to understand it a little more. But she uses the technique called EFT Tapping, or emotional freedom technique. And it's a practice that I continue to use when I'm feeling stressed or lonely, or I have an experience that comes up I don't know how to deal with, or an emotion that comes up and that I really just want to stuff and not deal with because I'm not quite sure how to. But Lauren teaches us the scientific evidence for using these practices and the benefits of it. She's very practical about it. And I know this episode is perfect timing, because if you set New Year's resolutions, how often do you keep them? Yeah, good question, right? I love to set New Year's resolutions, but I don't always keep them. I have on occasions, but not all the time. But EFT tapping is a tool and a practice that you can use that can actually help you keep those New Year's resolutions. And it assists you by going within and moving the emotions through our bodies so those emotions don't become stuck. Emotions are energy in motion. And when they get stuck, they can tend to cause disease within our bodies. And EFT tapping can also help with limiting beliefs that oftentimes hinders our best intentions to keep these New Year's resolutions. But before we get started with Lauren and we meet her, I want to introduce you to our next week's guest, who her name is Margaret Agard. And she is an award-winning author. She's a former executive in the high-tech industry and a mother of 8 children, and then a stepmother to 7. Yeah. But they don't all live under the same roof anymore. But Some's on the East Coast, some's on the West Coast. And so, yeah, but it's very interesting, her story. She is a Christian mystic and a Reiki level 2 healer. But Margaret focuses on helping others live a life of true purpose and joy with one simple daily practice. And I'm not going to tell you what that is right now. So you have to join me next week, Sunday, January 15th, to find out more about this simple daily practice that can help you as well. It's another benefit or help for our New Year's resolutions. So stay tuned for next Sunday to hear from Margaret. Now, make sure that you have signed up for my newsletter. You can go to ButterflyKissesPodcast.com and you sign up there. And then that way you won't miss it when a new episode appears. And as always, please subscribe to this podcast on Apple or whatever app that you're using to listen to this podcast. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. And of course, all these links are provided for you in the show notes. So it's very easy to go there and like and subscribe. And that way you won't miss it when a new episode is ready. And if you like what you hear today on Butterfly Kisses, I would love for you to leave us a review. 5 stars is always welcomed, but you use your own best internal judgment on that. I will trust the universe to bring us whatever it is we need this year. And please also share this with your family and friends, because this way we can help inspire others to be our best authentic self. Now that all of those announcements are done, please help me welcome Miss Lauren Fonvielle. And today I have Lauren Fonvielle with us. She is an integrative energy practitioner, otherwise known as EFT. She specializes in EFT tapping for stress, anxiety, and trauma. And she offers a fresh perspective on what keeps people feeling stuck, both physically, with chronic pain, and emotionally. She guides her clients on a journey of self-healing, breaking through obstacles, physical, mental, or emotional, that are keeping them feeling stuck and in pain. And she also believes our underlying beliefs and emotions, whether or not we're aware of them, can affect our happiness in life. Guys, are you listening to that? Our underlying beliefs and emotions, whether aware of them or not, can affect our happiness in life. And learning how to better manage our emotions and release any associated stress can be a complete game changer. This is so important nowadays on how to deal with stress. And a lot of times we're not taught how to do that growing up. And so it's a very important topic that I think we need to touch on. So please help me welcome Lauren to Butterfly Kisses.
Yay, thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for joining us. So tell me a little bit about you and how did you get involved in EFT tapping?
Yeah, well, my journey really started with my own struggles with anxiety and stress and feeling overwhelmed and getting caught up in that hamster wheel of thoughts in the brain. And this was about over 5 years ago. And it was right around the time we found out my husband was going to have to deploy, which made my anxiety skyrocket.
Mm-hmm.
I had to do something to make myself feel better. And that for me started with going to yoga and signing up for yoga teacher training. And then being at the yoga studio all the time, I was exposed to a lot of people that were into energy work and started studying Reiki and meditation and sound healing, and was introduced to EFT. And all of these different modalities have helped me tremendously over the years and have helped me to feel better in my body and more at ease. And that's what I love helping people with.
That's amazing. So your husband is in the Navy, is that correct?
Yes.
And he was being deployed for a fairly long time, if I read that correctly.
Yeah. So it ended up being a 13-month deployment, but then he tore his ACL and had to have surgery, and they had to do that down in Virginia while I was living here. So we ended up living apart for 22 months, which was pretty
Wow.
rough.
That's a long time to be apart.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, while he was in Virginia, we would make trips and go back and forth and see each other on the weekends and stuff. But with 2 little kids, it was tough.
I can only imagine. So tell us a little bit about EFT. What's the science behind it? How does it work? What exactly is it? For those inquiring minds out there that are like, what in the world is Amy talking about?
So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And it is a process of gently tapping on certain parts of the body while simultaneously acknowledging the emotions that you're feeling. And I often describe it as acupuncture without the needles, right? So when you go to an acupuncturist, they put those tiny little needles in at certain points of the body. But with tapping, we're just applying acupressure to some of those same points. And then there's the added component of speaking out loud and acknowledging the emotions that you're feeling. And so by combining those two things, it's just really amazing what you begin to notice, the thoughts that come up. A lot of subconscious thoughts can come to the surface. And as far as the science behind it, when you're tapping on these points, what's happening internally is that a message is being sent to the amygdala in the brain. And the amygdala is the part of the brain that controls fight or flight. And when you're in a state of fight or flight, cortisol is being pumped through the body. Cortisol is the stress hormone. That's there to protect you when you need it, when you need to fight back, when you need to run away. However, in this day and age, we're in a time where so many of us are dealing with chronic stress. And that means that you're in fight or flight all the time. And that means that the cortisol is pumping through your body at rates that it shouldn't be. And so by tapping on these points, it sends a message to the amygdala and says, hey, you're not actually in fight or flight. You don't need to be in fight or flight right now. And it's been shown to reduce the amount of cortisol pumping through the body by up to 43%. And that's a really big number.
That is a huge number.
Yeah. And if something that's so simple as learning where these points are on your body and tapping on them and saying how you feel can help you in those times of overwhelm, there's nothing more powerful than that.
So how does speaking out loud work?
Yeah.
How does that benefit?
Yeah. So I think a lot of the time we as humans will have the same thoughts. I don't know what the statistics are, but from day to day, we are thinking so many of the same thoughts on a repeated cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're just saying them to yourself, it's really easy to get caught up in them. But when you stop and you start to say something out loud, something that feels really true at the start can suddenly start to feel almost silly or just not true. That practice of saying it out loud, there's something really interesting that happens when we do that. And it feels good to acknowledge how you're feeling and to say it out loud. And it begins to shift your perspective. And when you can shift your perspective on something, obviously you're going to feel differently too.
Very true. Very true. How long does this normally take to do an EFT round or session or something like that?
Yeah, so there's really no wrong way to tap. So typically when I work with my clients, we tap together for about an hour. However, you don't have to do it for that long. You can just do it for a couple of minutes. You can even just find the point that you like the most. And in that time where you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed, just tap on that one point and do some deep breathing, and that alone will help you. But if you really want to get to the root of what's causing your pain, it can take time. It can take several sessions. And it's really all dependent upon how long you've been dealing with the issue, how ready you are for healing. There are a lot of contributing factors as to how long it can take to see some sort of difference or feel a difference, but most people will feel lighter during a session for sure.
What do you mean by feeling lighter?
If we're talking about like emotional stuff, sometimes emotions can just feel really heavy, almost like I get this thought of just like weight on your shoulders, just like a heaviness. And I don't know how else to describe it by just what I see in my clients. It's almost like that heaviness is lifted when we're working together, and just how they're looking, and then also how they're feeling. If you're feeling really stressed and overwhelmed, it's like, oh, maybe it feels a little lighter. It doesn't feel as strong as it did in the beginning.
Can you give us an example of a client that you've worked with that's had an amazing breakthrough or has had an issue that they've been working on that it just kind of healed through working?
Yeah, I have lots of different stories.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Yeah, I had a client come to me who was dealing with lots of fear around going to the dentist. She had trauma in her childhood with going to the dentist. And
I'm right there with her on that one. I'm just saying, those dentists, I tell you.
And so she had work that she needed to have done, and she knew that she needed to have it done in order to stay healthy. She canceled the appointment, I believe, 3 times. And that's when she reached out to me. She's like, I need help. I can't keep canceling this appointment. And so we had several sessions and we tapped on her fear of going. We tapped on memories that came up around her experience when she was a child, how that made her feel, how it makes her feel now thinking about the fact that she went through that, just all of the different aspects of the fear that she was experiencing. And we got to the day before her appointment and we went through what the day was going to be like and her anxiety level. Okay, you're getting up in the morning, you're getting dressed, you're going to the dentist. Like, how intense is the anxiety, right? And then what we call tap it down. We tap and talk about it until it comes down to a level where it feels manageable. And then it's like, okay, now we're getting in the car, we're on our way. How intense is the anxiety now? It's up a little bit. Okay, let's tap it down. And so we went through that whole process of what the day was going to look like, getting to the parking lot, getting into the waiting room and tapping it down each step of the way. And then she had her appointment. She was able to go. She did not have a panic attack, which is what has happened in the past when going to the dentist. And she had a wonderful experience, which I also think was due to her due diligence in finding a dentist that really was listening to her and what she needed and to feel comfortable. And it was great. It was a long appointment. It was a 3-hour appointment for her. And she was able to get through it and not have a panic attack, which was obviously a really big win and what was the goal for her to feel comfortable. And then I got an email from her 2 months later. And she said, I can't even believe it. I had to go back to the dentist again. I wasn't even anxious leading up to it. The day of, I tapped a little bit and then I was fine and it was a great appointment. And so it just went to show, once you're able to release some of the stuff that we have stuffed down, these memories that she stuffed down and these emotions that she had associated with them, she was really able to let it go and then find that peace and not freak out when she was on her way there. Yeah.
Can it help with people who have like severe PTSD from being in the war or having a traumatic car accident and not wanting to drive anymore,
Yeah.
or people who just have like social anxieties?
Yeah, it has been shown to help with PTSD, and it's
Mhm.
actually been approved by the VA to be used with veterans who have been diagnosed with PTSD. There was a study that was recently done that did tapping with a group of veterans, all who had been diagnosed with PTSD, and they tapped with a practitioner on a one-on-one basis for 6 weeks, once a week for 6 weeks. And then at the end of the 6 weeks, they checked back in with them. And 90% of the veterans in that group had a reduction in their PTSD symptoms. Some of them had such a reduction in PTSD symptoms that they were no longer diagnosed with PTSD, which is phenomenal, almost hard to believe. And then they checked back in with them 3 months later and 6 months later, and the reduction was still there. So it can absolutely help with trauma. And the way that that works is that it really helps to create space between the trauma and the present moment. And what I mean by that is how you were saying with a car accident. If you were in a car accident, right? Maybe you get in that car accident, your heart is racing, you're sweating, you're panicking, right? In the moment, you're in pain, whatever it may be. And then you heal physically from that experience and life goes on. But maybe years later, you're outside with your kids and you hear a loud screech of a car, which automatically transports you back in time. And now you're feeling all of those same physical symptoms again. It's like you're reliving it again. And so when I say create space, it's this idea that you can create space between the trigger, whatever that may be, if it's a loud screech or a boom or something that you see, and the physical sensation in your body, so that there's this space between the two, so that eventually by doing this work and by tapping on that trauma, you can get to a point where you can be exposed to the trigger and then not have the physical sensation in your body. It's not going to erase the memory. It's not going to change the memory, but it's going to allow you to be with the memory and not physically be experiencing it like all over again, if that makes sense.
Why does our subconscious do that to us, where we're actually feeling like we're reliving something that happened 10, 20, even 30 years ago, or even a year ago?
Well, I think there's cellular memory. And I also think that if we don't allow ourselves to feel all the emotions associated with the trauma, when the trauma happens, those emotions get suppressed into the body. And so by doing this work, you're then acknowledging those emotions, you're allowing yourself to feel them, perhaps for the first time, and then you can release them. So we need to be able to feel it to heal it.
Feel it to heal it. I like that.
Yeah.
Feel it to heal it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can be a really scary process to
Oh,
actually
yeah.
feel it.
Right. There's a lot of people that are scared. The idea of inviting in intense sadness or frustration or anger. People are like, I don't want to feel that. But that's how so many of us are, because we have these experiences, and all of these experiences that we have in life are associated with these emotions. And if they're emotions that we deem uncomfortable or not good, even though, there is no wrong emotion or bad emotion. Emotions are just like indicators for our body. The definition of emotion is energy in motion. It's energy that needs to move. It does not want to be suppressed. Right?
Mhm.
But when we have something happen to us that's really scary or upsetting or whatever, we suppress it, we push it down, and then we distract ourselves and we throw ourselves into something else. And that can work in the short term, but it doesn't work in the long term. And those emotions are going to creep back up until they come out in some way, whether it's emotionally or physically. And sometimes that happens. There's a lot of emotional contributors to physical pain. And we can release some of that physical pain by holding space for these emotions that we've pushed down for so long.
Do you feel that, and I've heard it said before, and I've done a few podcasts on it, that the emotions that we suppress can lead to physical disease?
Yes. Yes, I 100% believe that, because they need to express themselves in some way. And if you're not holding space to acknowledge them mentally, they're going to come out physically.
Isn't that crazy?
Mhm.
How all of that works.
Yeah, that whole mind-body connection, it's all really connected. I'm a big fan of Louise Hay, and
Mhm.
there's a book that she wrote and identified all these different diagnoses and then what she associated the emotion with.
Mhm.
So it's really interesting. And just from my personal experience in diagnoses of family members and stuff, and then seeing what the associated emotion is, it's like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me that those two things are linked.
Do you have to be a spiritual or a religious person to believe that EFT is going to work for you?
Not at all. You don't even need to believe that it's going to work for you. What you do need to do for it to work for you is two things. You need to identify the words, like the emotions that you're feeling, and put it to words. So have words that resonate with you that when you're tapping on the points. And two, be able to tune into how you're feeling and allowing yourself to go there. And if you're someone who's fearful of allowing yourself to feel the feelings, it's okay. You can start there, but there does have to be a willingness to really tune into your body, because that's just how it works, right? So if we're saying, I'm so angry, I'm so frustrated, whatever the intense emotion is that you're dealing with as you're tapping on the points, but your mind is thinking about what you got to do tomorrow, there's that disconnect between the mind and the body, then it
Mhm.
won't work. But you have to have that mind body connection and be like, I'm so angry, tuning in, what other thoughts are coming up? What am I noticing in my body? And it's a process. And that's why you work with a practitioner to help guide you through that process and really begin to help you to create those connections to move through and feel better.
Do you actually feel something in your body when you're doing this?
Yeah, you can for sure. For example, and I think this is one that a lot of people can relate to, when you're feeling anxious and stressed, where do you feel that in your body? Most people have an automatic response to that. Oh, I have really tight shoulders and my neck feels all tight and my shoulders are up by my ears, right? When I'm stressed. So people can understand stress. I have this physical pain, but it's not just with stress where we have physical pain. It's with any type of emotion. Sadness, maybe you feel it in your heart. Anger, maybe you carry it in your stomach, but people don't necessarily think about it that way. And so it's this
Mhm.
process of beginning to tune into your body, listen to what your body is telling you. And that can definitely be a new concept for people. But our bodies are so innately wise. And if we take the time to quiet the mind and listen, the answers are really there. And this is a tool that can help you do just that.
Now, if I was a new client and I'm coming to you for my first session, what is it that I can expect?
It starts off by talking about what you've got going on. What do you got going on in your life that's bothering you, that's upsetting you, that's causing you pain physically or emotionally? And we start there. It's very much a collaborative process, and it meets you where you're at. And we just go one step at a time.
Do you meet online or is it all in person?
Yeah, the majority of my clients are virtual. I work with people all over the place, and I am located in Middletown, Delaware, and I do see a few in-person clients here as well.
Awesome. So, what is sound healing and Reiki? You said you do that as well. How do you incorporate that with EFT, or do you?
Yeah, no, I do. I really do believe that different modalities resonate with different people. And by combining different modalities, you can find what feels best in your body and just introducing people to new things. Reiki is a form of Japanese energy healing. And sound healing, I have a crystal alchemy singing bowl and I have chimes and I'll play those and we do meditations. And it's all about figuring out what is going to help you to come home to yourself, as I like to say, and really focus on that inside world. We are so used to being in this outside world and the chaos of the outside world and all these things that are happening around us and how that outside world impacts our inside world. And the work that I do helps people to really focus on their inside world, and then they can reap the benefits of how that impacts the outside world. And that's a powerful thing. If we're able to tune inward, then your experience outwardly is going to be different.
Now, for those who are on different medications for anxiety or PTSD, can they do this alongside? Does it affect the medication in any way?
It does not affect the medication. And I would always recommend to obviously continue to do whatever your doctors are telling you. This is a modality that really complements regular medicine as well. And there's no negative side effects of tapping. There's only benefits. And people think, oh, it's weird. I thought it was weird. The whole idea of tapping on yourself and talking, and that's going to make me feel better physically and emotionally, that sounds like some weird stuff. And then I tried it and I was like, oh, okay, it is weird, but it works. And so even if you're like the tiniest bit intrigued by it, I would encourage you to give it a go, see how it makes you feel. And there's always a reason. That's what I believe. There's always a reason why we have these nudges to listen to certain things or try certain things or go to certain classes. Listen to those nudges and explore and see what's going to help you to feel your best, because everybody deserves to feel good.
Very true. Very true. So besides feeling better, what are some of the other benefits of EFT tapping?
Yeah. So it can definitely reduce stress and anxiety and overwhelm. It's been shown to reduce physical pain, whether that's chronic pain or just daily aches and pains. It's been shown to help with insomnia and improve sleep. It can help with PTSD, like we talked about. There really is a wide variety of things. It can also help with limiting beliefs. So if you're someone who is always having that negative voice in your head is really loud, telling you that you're not good enough, who are you to even try to do this, or whatever that lovely little voice of negativity is telling you, there's reasons why you're thinking that. And more likely than not, it's related to things that have gone on in your past. And so tapping can help to get to the root of that and release that. So you're not a negative Nancy to yourself all the time.
Now, would you suggest teaching teenagers this practice?
Yeah, I'm working with 2 teens right now, and I'm really blown away by just how well they are able to really get in tune with how they're feeling. And then the newfound awareness that they have through this process. So 100%, I think teens, young children need this. They need to be able to express how they're feeling. I ran a kids tapping group this spring. And one of the exercises I would walk them through is thinking of coming up with a visual in your mind of a safe place, what we call your inner resource. This is a place that you can go and visit and come to at any time that's going to help you to feel calm. And so I asked them to think of a time where they felt safe. And if they couldn't think of anything, then to make it up in their mind. It could be a made up place or a real place in nature or whatever. And I said, if anybody wants to share, you can share what your safe place is. And one of the kids was like, oh, my safe place was before COVID. That just hit me hard. To me, that just goes to show just how much these kids have gone through, especially in the last few years, and how they need tools to be able to cope with their anxiety and their stress and their overwhelm, and to be able to share how they're feeling and not be thinking these thoughts on repeat in their mind, but to be able to get it out. And sometimes just saying something that, even if you've been thinking it over and over and over again, sometimes just saying it, it's just like, oh, no, that's not true. That's ridiculous. Sometimes that's all you need to do. And so having a tool that these kids can use can be really, really helpful.
My niece, I know she has had a lot of anxiety going through COVID. And it's been difficult, I know. So that's one of the reasons I asked that question, is if it was safe for them to use as well.
Mm-hmm.
How can people find you? Where can they find you?
So my website is mindshiftwithlauren.com, and I do have a free masterclass. So if all of this stuff is interesting to you and you want to learn more, particularly about the science, and experience it for yourself, you can sign up for the masterclass, and that's mindshiftwithlauren.com/masterclass.
Awesome. I will make sure that that's all in the show notes and also in my blog that I'll put together for this. Is there anything else that we need to know about EFT tapping that you can think of? If someone wants to get started with this and they can't necessarily afford to go see a practitioner, what's one way that they can get started?
Yeah, definitely. So there's tons of YouTube videos out there. I have a YouTube channel too, so feel free to visit that. You can find the link on the website. And learn where the points are and just give it a try. Learn where the points are on the body and tap, and the practitioner is going to be saying words. You can repeat the words. It's like a game of Simon Says, and see how it makes you feel. But just keep in mind, the one thing that I mentioned before that's really important is using words that truly resonate with you. And so sometimes when we're watching YouTube videos, the practitioner could say something that doesn't necessarily really hit home with you. And so you might need to change the words. Once you get a hang of like where the points are and how it works, try using your own words, because that's really where the benefit comes in.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lauren. I do have one other question for you, and it's one that I ask every one of my guests that I'm going to ask you as well.
Okay.
You have an opportunity to sit and chat with someone, and it's in your favorite place that's just warm, comfy place just for you, and you get to sit and chat with someone, whether that person be on this side of the veil or the other side. Who would that person be, and what would you talk about?
Well, it would definitely be my grandmother. I miss her dearly. And I think we would probably just talk about everything that's happened since I've last seen her, and my kids and life. Yeah.
Yeah, I could just see that.
Yeah. She was a very, very special woman to me. And we had lots of wonderful conversations, and I can still hear her laugh in my in my mind. So that would definitely be who I'd want to talk to.
I'm sure she'd want to talk with you as well. Yeah. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all about EFT. And I absolutely enjoy doing the practice myself, and you've explained it excellently. Excellently.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure being here with you today.
Well, thank you. And we'll make sure that everything is in the show notes for everyone. So I appreciate your time today.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Butterfly Kisses, a journey of spiritual transformation. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe by hitting the subscribe button. This way you won't miss it when a new episode is released. Again, thank you, and remember, always spread your gorgeous wings, my friend, and fly. Until next time, see ya.